Hello and welcome to the How To Class Spec Role Warrior Tanking Guide. I'm Fhraelaok, and today we will go over a basic spec, class mechanics and abilities, and a brief how-to to actually playing your role in a dungeon. Alright, so let's start right off in the specs. For prot, I am currently using a 15.353 spec. Right now I'm using a spec that I used to use back on my Legos, but it is still a pretty good spec to use spell reflection with it in dungeons such as Heroic Forge of Souls, due to all the casters, Pit of Saren. It can still be very helpful. So let's go ahead and start going down these talents. Right now I'm in the arms tree. We have improved Heroic Strike, 3 out of 3, that way it costs less rage, you get to keep it spammed. Deflection, parry chance by 5%, this is always an absolute must for tanks. We come down to improved charge, so it generates more rage. Most warriors still charge in when they pull. It really does help to pull threat right off. Impale, we've got 2 out of 2, critical strike bonus is increased by 20%, more threat. And that moves into deep wounds. That way when you do critical strike, you have a bleed effect dealing nearly 50% of your melee weapon damage. That includes off of your thunderclap any crit you get, such as your shockwave. It will put a bleed effect on those targets. Alright, we'll move into Fury. We've got Armored to the Teeth. It increases your attack power by 3 for every 108 armor value you have. When you're a tank, even when you're DPS, that's an incredible amount of attack power added. It's a lot more threat. We come into prot. We've got our shield specialization, 2 out of 5. You could honestly put a couple more in there. Right now I'm sitting down with improved spell reflection. A couple of these, yes, can be moved. Please make sure you understand these. If you feel there's something in here that you wouldn't use, don't spec into it. Spec into something that would be more useful to your playstyle. But we have 2 in there. That increases your chance to block by 2%. Improved Thunderclap, again, it reduces the cost of it, increases the damage. That way you can do more AoE threat, as that's important now. Insights, it also increases your critical strike, anticipation, and absolute must, dodge chance by 5%. Last Stand, an absolute must, a brilliant cooldown that increases your health temporarily for 20 seconds. Improved Revenge, you should be using this in your rotation, so it will increase the damage dealt by it, and they increased the threat on it as well, so it's a great ability to use. Shield Mastery increases your block value again, absolute must. Toughness, another absolute must, it increases your armor value. Like I said, spell reflection depends on your playstyle. If you're not going to use it, please don't spec into it. Spec into something you would use. We come down to Concussion Blow. Gag Order. Your Shield Bash has a 100% chance to silence the target for 3 seconds. So even if you don't interrupt his cast, he will be silenced for the next 3 seconds to come. One-handed weapon specialization. Of course you want this to increase the damage you deal with a one-handed melee weapon. You've got your improved defensive stance, another absolute must. It increases your block, parry, and dodge have a 100% chance to become enraged and increase physical damage caused, as well as spell damage is reduced by 6%. Like I said, Vigilance, it generates threat from whatever target you put it on, of course when you're on party members, and it will increase your threat from theirs, as well as it reduces damage they take. Focused Rage, reduces rage costs. Vitality, an absolute must, your total strength by 6%, stamina by 9%, and expertise is higher. Warbringer, Devastate, of course you want that, that's what will apply your Sunder Armors. Critical Block, you do want this as well. Successful blocks have a 60% chance to block double the normal amount, definitely good. Sword and Board, critical strike chance to devastate. Refreshing cooldown of Shield Slam ability and reducing its cost by 100% for 5 seconds. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a lot more threat in the end. Damage Shield, whenever you take damage, it'll damage them back 20% of your block value. On Shockwave, that's an AoE conal effect in front of you that will stun them and, of course, generate more threat. Alright, I'm going to run down the abilities that I have on my bar going straight across. Alright, Shield Slam. In all honesty, this should be your pretty much #1 priority on a single target. It really does a lot of damage and has a really high amount of threat. Always use it when you can, using your sword and board when it procs. Try to use this as soon as you can. Rage cost is 0, and it refreshes the cooldown. Taunt, I would say only don't use this in your rotation unless you absolutely must. A lot of mobs will become immune to taunts. As well, if you need it because something gets away or something happens, you want to have that off a cooldown. It does only have a 6-second cooldown, and you can use it at range, but remember that's what's going to get a target to attack you directly for at least 6 seconds. Rend, this is probably your lowest priority, but do try to use it when everything else is good, when your revenge, when your shield slams on cooldown, when you have 5 sunders up. Be sure to make sure your Rend tries to stay up on the target. It's just more threat. Like I said, revenge, it's extremely cheap. It does have a chance to stun an enemy, but that's normally not why you use it. You do use it for the threat. It does a lot of threat and some pretty good damage. Try to use that also whenever it's lit up. Blood Rage, I would use this when you need threat, which means you're low on rage. Otherwise, you can pretty much use it any time it's up, or right before you jump into a fight. Devastate, that's what's going to be stacking your Sunder armor onto the target. You always want a stack of 5 Sunder armors on the target, and it is the tank's job over a warrior DPS's job to keep it up. So make sure after everything else is on cooldown there, that you're using Devastate and keep it up to a full 5 stacks. I will go back over another part of this in just a moment. Thunderclap is your AoE threat, as well as it puts a debuff on the target that reduces their speed of attack. Shield Block, I would say keep up as often as possible. It increases your chance to block by 100% for 10 seconds. Charge, I would say use when you run into a fight. Make sure you charge in so you have some rage at the beginning. Not absolutely necessary. Please, please, please don't charge in if your healers are way behind. Especially if the boss is going to hit you hard right off. You might die. Heroic Strike, you want to keep up all the time as long as you have rage. Shockwave, you want to use as often as possible in a single target. In an AoE, try to make sure everything's in front of you, then use it. That way you have threat on all of them. Now what I wanted to go back over is, as I mentioned, the debuff from this and Demoralizing Shout. Try to keep those up, and then you can work on your Devastate. Alright, use your Vigilance on whoever has the highest amount of threat. Try to keep your own Commanding Shout up so you have more health. Spell Reflection is necessary if the target's a caster. That way it reflects the damage back to them. That increases your threat, that reduces damage done to you, etc., etc. Now, Cleave is also on the same cooldown as Heroic Strike. Use Cleave instead if it's multi-targets. It does take more threat. See 9 threat for Heroic Strike, 17 for Cleave. But if you got multiple things hitting you, especially like an Ice Crown, it's a really great ability. You have like infinite rage at that point, so use it. Intimidating Shout's your fear. Shield Bash is your silencing ability. Concussion Blow is a stun, it does threat. And then Heroic Throw, that's a great way to silence abilities of opponents as well, to get some good threat on them and to pull targets. Here's your cooldowns. Enraged Regeneration will regenerate 30% of your total health. Last Stand is a basic cooldown and increases your maximum health. You've got your Shield Wall, reduces all damage taken by 60% for 12 seconds. Another great ability to use is a major cooldown.